So I wanted to make another video about the fact that women are, dealing with so many chronic illnesses and stress-related illnesses in this day and age, that I think we really need to take a step back and look at how busy our lives have gotten, how much we're neglecting, our very core needs as human beings, and how we can really be intentional about kind of clearing out those things and then implementing what brings us joy, peace, health, wellness, connection, all of the things that I feel like are the cornerstones to like a beautiful kind of full life. And I've learned from, being in different cultures, whether it's in Italy or Costa Rica or Thailand, like the way people live is obviously so vastly different in different areas, but you can really learn a little bit from everyone. Like, I remember one of our taxi drivers just commenting on how much Americans work and how, they don't work to live, or they don't live to work, right? They work to live, and they very much so value human connection, getting together with family, enjoying food and wine. And not to say that's not the case here, but it's just a different culture, right? And I think we have gotten so caught up in having full lives, but they're full of, I don't want to say unnecessary things, but if you're spending your whole day driving kids from one activity to another, and you're placing your food orders online and picking them up, and you're ordering off Amazon all the time, and you could like go through a week and like not have even done the things that you may feel like are important to you. And so we need to define what is truly important to us and see if our actions are aligning with that on a daily, hourly, weekly, definitely yearly basis. Because I remember at one point kind of declining having a family member come over, and then doing things that really I enjoy, like shopping, but then felt guilty about spending the money. And I thought, well, my core belief is that like time with family is invaluable. It's so important. We don't get this time back. And, I'm trying to save money. So why is it that I'm avoiding setting up that time with them and now spending money and doing other things, right? So we can fall into the trap of like wanting these quick dopamine hits and just whatever it is, letting our day kind of tell us where to go, that our actions are no longer aligning with the things that we say we want. Granted, we may not truly want those things, right? We could say we want a healthy body, but if we're not willing to work out or eat a little bit more healthy, enough to make that change, then do we really want it, right? We might want it, but do we have a great enough why behind it? And so I think we need to get clear on those things if we want to live healthier, better lives as women, less stressful lives. We need to say no to some of the things that society is telling us we have to do. For me, I've always chosen to work part-time. Granted, I know that is somewhat of a luxury, especially with the cost of living in this day and age. I'm in California, but I've also chosen to live below my means in various ways. I drive a 12-year-old car, and I paid cash for it, and I just didn't like the idea of having to work another day to pay a car note. So I've chosen not to do that. Will I do that in the future? Maybe. But the idea of just like buying a new car because I have an older car, and then not even realizing that's a full days of work, and that I'm away from my family, and that I'm more likely to snack on that day or miss a workout, or all the domino effects that each decision has on our health and wellness. Whether if you're working full time and then kind of inflating your life to meet that new income limit, then do you really need to work full time, right? If you say you want to be able to have more time with your kids, well, can you pivot and, make changes in your life to do that? And that can mean really big decisions. For some people, it means delaying buying a home or even downsizing. But you have to kind of do the things, right? We've got one life. Our health is another really important one. And we need to treat it like our life depends on it, because it does. And that might mean, you know, changing a job, right? Sometimes stress translates to overeating. A lot of times it does, or poor health, because we're so stressed and we're so limited on time and energy that when we get off of work, we feel depleted. We're not likely to want to work out. We're not likely to want to make healthy meals. Maybe you're more apt to just picking up takeout on the way home. Your life, your job, and that will really kind of determine how you go about the rest of the time. And I always say, like, we show up, especially as women, right? If we're working, we wake up with, let's say, 100% battery. You're going to work 8 to 5. You're already at, 25% battery by the time you get home. You take a shower, you make dinner, now you're at 15%. And then that time that you have left with your loved ones, your husband, or, your partner, your family, is very minimal. So you're giving a lot more to other areas of your life, just naturally. It's nobody's fault, but that's just the way, we're kind of led to believe our lives should be set up. And then you are left with, not a lot for those people that are supposed to be the most important. Granted, I understand you need money to pay bills, to keep a roof over your head, to eat, to survive. But I think a lot of us live in surplus and don't necessarily need all the things that we have. If we were to surround our choices around like time with family and health, what would you do differently? Would it mean you're working out every day? Okay, what's keeping you from working out every day? Would it mean seeing your, family twice a week? Okay, what's keeping you from that? Often it's our schedules, our commitments, and how can we rearrange those things? If you absolutely cannot leave the job you're in for whatever reason, how can you get more energy for those 4 hours after work that you have? So really just kind of being mindful about the changes that need to be implemented and then making them. And you'll start to feel more in alignment with what your life looks like and how you spend your time. And you won't feel at such like a crossroads all the time because you've defined those things, you've made the changes, and you're actually living out that life. So the more you stay in limbo, the more stress you're adding to your life, the more poor choices you may make. And so I think, it's all something to really take into consideration and something that can constantly be reevaluated. And I'm not saying you have to start and stop and throw everything away that you've worked for overnight or, every 6 months. But I think a life audit is important because we want to be healthy. We want to have long, fruitful lives. And I'm really passionate about helping women to obtain that in a world that's telling us to kind of work harder and not really highlighting the way it's negatively impacting women. Even just buying Starbucks on your way to work, for example, because you are out of time or you don't have the bandwidth to make coffee at home. How does that compound? I love the book, The Compound Effect, because it really like nails that idea in, right? If you do something over and over and over again, over time, what is that going to look like? Are you going to, spend X amount of money over the year? Are you going to gain X amount of weight over the year by doing that choice? And so I think I'm very passionate about helping women, and I would love to coach anyone who's interested. My first session will be free. I am a social worker. I have experience in counseling. I've counseled with the police department. I've worked as an associate clinical social worker doing telehealth therapy as an intern, and then I've spent the last 5 years as a medical social worker doing counseling and all kinds of things, everything from the trauma unit to the mother-baby unit, and in pediatrics now. So I have a little experience in all areas, but my main focus is on women. And if you'd like to reach out, I will put my information below. Thanks. Bye.